Deep Blue Sea comes with a very unique secondary commander, meaning Sophia Dogged Detective. While right now she feels underwhelming, there might be a moment where it starts raining decent dog creatures in a magic set. That being said, there's a huge potential for her to become a very powerful underdog commander one day. For now, the best commander choice in the precon is the face commander, meaning Morska Undersea Sleuth. Having an unlimited hand size is a neat advantage, so the first upgrade focus should be cards that let us draw more of them. Overbeing of Myth gets bigger the more cards you have in your hand and draws you more of them at your draw step, although it costs 5 mana to cast. Similarly to Sturmgeist, which has flying and lets you draw a card but under different conditions, also for 5 mana. Then we have Aeon Chronicler, that's more of an honorable mention as it fades in comparison to the aforementioned two, still quite valid in this deck because of the suspend option for when there's a lot of mana available. This covers the creatures, but there's the instant spell that may prove to be a game ender if cast on a Trampler. Inner Calm, Outer Strength gives whatever you cast it on a ridiculous amount of 1/1s, provided you have a ridiculous amount of cards in your hand at the time you cast it. A much more powerful alternative is Righteous Authority, which for 5 mana might seem underwhelming but can be a great way to make the game changer creature bigger and also draws you an extra card on your turns. It's an aura, so the effect stays for more than just one turn too. There's also Ivory Tower, which can become a very cheap way to get passive life point gain from having a lot of cards in your hand constantly. Extra useful, especially when you're facing opponents that rely on slow life drain mechanics, making commanders like Sheoldred the Apocalypse less effective and no longer your kryptonite for drawing cards. To ramp things up, the classic growth spiral draws you an extra card but also allows you to put an extra land onto the battlefield, kind of like AC Tyrant of Gyre Strait. That has an exorbitant casting cost, which shouldn't really be an issue as long as you include the lower cost spells like Topiary Stomper for example. You get value out of it even if it's cast later with AC on the battlefield. For 1 mana fewer, you also have Tatyova Benthic Druid, which is an uncommon, so doesn't hurt the wallet as hard as AC does. Doctor Who Universes Beyond haters might want to cover their ears now. Apparently there's a huge amount of cards that work well with Morska that were included with the precons. One of them is Astrid Path, very nice for cheap early food token setup and the explore option as well. Madame Vastra gives you both food and clue tokens and is one of those creatures that benefit from the spells, giving you +1s per card in your hand I mentioned earlier. That or Martha Jones making her unblockable. Great addition as she produces a clue and also utilizes the clues you get from other means. One of those means can be Sally Sparrow, whose another ability is letting you cast creatures on your opponent's turns. Very useful. Then you have Sarah Jane Smith for the low cost of 2 mana that gives you clue tokens whenever you cast anything historic, like a legendary creature or an artifact. Speaking of artifacts, 500-Year Diary generates blue mana from clues. This might come in handy later in the game. Okay, enough of the Doctor Who cards. Zimone Quandrix Prodigy lets you draw even more cards once you have enough lands placed onto the battlefield and only costs 2 mana. This can be quickly achieved with Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath, for example. Don't forget about our boy Uro when upgrading your deck. A notable mention is Angelic Sleuth, although you should remember that it only works with creatures that have counters on them. A much better sleuth for this deck is the Daring one, which is an early cast and clue maker once transformed. Briarbridge Patrol does that as well, but costs 4 mana. The higher cost is worth it though, considering that you can cast big boys like AC for free if you sacrificed enough clue tokens. Then we get the standard format all-star Danik Pious Apprentice, serving for a clue maker, but also as a possible protection against those pesky graveyard players. Another 2 mana visitor from standard is the Fairy Mastermind and has a way to make players draw extra cards regardless of whose turn it is. The precon didn't include the white investigation enchantment, so keep in mind that you can benefit from having thorough investigation in your deck, giving you clues and a way to venture into a dungeon. Weirding Wood ramps up nicely and gives you a clue token, so there's value here as well. On the subject of investigating, Secrets of the Key is a proper clue maker with a flashback, and Fey Offering on the table gives you an outlet for getting the tokens as a byproduct of casting spells. Hold for Questioning adds a bit of control as well as an extra clue token. Sacrificing the clues can also be given additional value with, for example, Fleeting Memories. Do we actually need that many of the tokens? With cards like Confront the Unknown, we get a huge advantage from having them in large quantities, so might as well take spells that create those clues. There's nothing stopping you from taking utility spells that do that. Expose Evil can prove useful, Humble the Brute as well. You can even use spells like Fateful Absence or Into Deep to your own disadvantage if you desperately require a clue token at that moment. Don't forget to like the video if you found it helpful, and if you know any cards that would work well with the deck, you can post the names in the comment section below. Have a great day.